Isn't how I envisioned this or planned this, but I am going to retire. This is not an easy decision. It's the hardest decision of my life. I'm still in pain. It's been 4 years of this injury pain rehab cycle, and it's taken my joy of this game away. I want to thank football for so many wonderful moments in my life. Learn, change in so many meaningful ways. It's the greatest team sport in the world.
No question it was difficult for Andrew Luck having to make that decision and then make that announcement the other night. And it's going to lead off a couple of football topics. I'm going to put some time on the clock here. Give me 90 seconds on the clock, because there's been a lot of criticism of Andrew Luck that we have seen for this decision. And some of it, as I mentioned yesterday, is just sort of the attention-grabbing, hot take variety. I'm not even going to address that nonsense. But I have heard, and Steve Berline was among those who offered, I think, some thoughtful criticism. And I've heard some from fans of the Colts myself. So 90 seconds. Is there room in your mind, D. Wood, for any legitimate criticism of Luck and the way this was handled?
I think selfishly, as a player, you do have a feeling of, man, we need all hands on deck. I mean, literally, you're talking about one of the best quarterbacks in the National Football League that decided to walk away right before the regular season. So I think selfishly, you do have those type of feelings, but you do understand that this man has put his body through so much in his career.
See, the way I look at Andrew Luck, yeah, the timing, you could be critical of that, but I don't think this was a hasty decision. It wouldn't surprise me if we find out that he had talked to Jim Irsay in the front office deeper into the summer, and they said, hey, as much time as you need, we just need to know by the third preseason game. So it looks like he's dipping right at the end, but this is something that he's probably been contemplating for a while, and I bet the ownership has known about it, but they wanted their best player to have all the time he needed in case he wanted to return.
The idea was, and once again, I'm not taking this position, but I am repeating it. Steve Berline essentially said he could have gone on that injured list that would have you sidelined for the first however many weeks that is. I believe it's the first 8 weeks. See how things are going. See how he's feeling. Maybe he can come back then. Maybe he can't.
Greeny, if you're not 100% in, you're done. You're retired. Like literally, Bill Parcells said that. You have to be, this game is too hard for you not to be 100% vested in it. And clearly from Andrew Luck's perspective, mentally just wasn't in there.
I think part of it is the respect he has for his teammates, and Jacoby Brissett. He doesn't want to be hanging over, this team, this cloud of whether or not he's going to return. They talk about it every week, and it becomes a sounding point.
It's interesting to me. There's just been more criticism of the legitimate variety than I would have expected for something that seems so obviously to be his own decision to make. All right, next topic. Give me 90 seconds on the clock. Yesterday, Odell Beckham participated in team drills for the first time in 3 weeks. Did you know he has a lingering hip injury? The Browns open their season 12 days from now against the Titans. So he really hasn't worked that much with Baker Mayfield. Is that a concern in Cleveland? 90 seconds on the clock, Bobby. Go.
It concerns me not at all. When you look at all the preseason now and how much guys are practicing, if it doesn't concern me with Antonio Brown, it's certainly not going to concern me with Odell Beckham Jr. with what he's doing. He's had a little hip. They practiced all offseason together, him and Baker. They're going to be on the same page, the timing, the offense. Nobody practices. Nobody plays in the preseason anymore. They come, they run around, they get in shape, but nobody wants to risk getting hurt. Soft tissue injury, not going to linger. Get him healthy. He'll be fine.
I get that not playing in the preseason games has become meaningless. But let me say those words again. Has not participated in team drills in 3 weeks. Is that a concern to you, D. Wood?
It's a concern, and the reason because he's missed 16 games in the past 2 years. Okay, if it was Antonio Brown who's been playing in all these games, but this is a guy as talented as Odell Beckham Jr. is, he's missed a lot of time. So not being out there for the full slate of the offseason in training camp gives you a little pause for concern.
His new quarterback is also very young, as good as Baker Mayfield is, and he's really good. He is actually just starting his second year in the NFL.
And that's a whole nother topic. It's like, as much as we talk about Baker Mayfield, he's only going into his second year, people. Like, he's going to have some struggles this year. I know it's hard to believe, but
It doesn't bother me he hasn't played, because I want Odell Beckham Jr. to be healthy for the reason that you said. He's missed a lot of time. Don't drag this thing out into the regular season. Get it taken care of now so you can move forward with success.
The expectations are overwhelming for the quarterback, for the receiver, and for the entire football team. One more. Panthers quarterback Cam Newton working with a trainer on the side during the open portion of practice yesterday as he works his way back from a sprained foot that he suffered in the preseason game the other night. Afterwards, head coach Ron Rivera said he was pleased with Cam Newton's progress. And you know, it's sort of an interesting time You look at his contractual situation, signed for another year. Some of the questions with new ownership there. Is this a make or break season for Cam Newton in Carolina? 90 seconds, go.
I think this is the crossroads season. I think we're seeing Cam Newton. He's had an assortment of injuries. We're seeing his body literally breaking down because of the style of play he has, and because of all the factors that you just laid out. New ownership. I think Ron Rivera is going to be on the hot seat this year. If Cam doesn't have, a real breakout type season, bouncing back from last year, I think there could be major changes in Carolina.
He's got 2 years left on his deal. If they're not starting to talk extension after this offseason, there's an issue. And Greeny, where's Clemson located?
Right there. Right
South Carolina. In 2
yeah.
years, Trevor Lawrence is going to be available. If they struggle this year, I could see them potentially be getting ready to move on. And if they don't play well, they're going to be in position to potentially take him. So Cam is really playing for his job, because if he doesn't get that extension, they're probably not playing well, and they're going to be looking to take that guy right in the state south of them.
If you're watching and you're thinking to yourself, how old is Cam? He's 30. He's the same age basically that Andrew Luck is for all intents and purposes. Like Luck, he has been beaten up a lot in his career. He's taken a lot of big hits. But if the Carolina Panthers were to decide to move on from him, there'd be a lot of other teams that will be dying to sign him, right?
I mean, Greeny, there's not that many really good quarterbacks in the league, and Cam Newton is in the upper echelon of quarterbacks in the national football. If he was hit the open market, there would be a team to scoop him up right away.
He's an elite talent, but he's been getting nicked up. He's big, he's physical, and eventually those physical tools will start to erode if he doesn't take care of himself. Quit getting hit.
There's one thing that we've never seen in NFL history, and that is an old running quarterback. It just doesn't last that long for an obvious reason, no matter how big and strong you may be. It's an interesting time in Carolina. So that is the situation in the NFL. Let's run the option on the college level, because we are with Mr. Paul Feinbaum today. And here we go. Paul, we start at the end. Who's going to win the Heisman Trophy this year?
That would be Trevor Lawrence. I think he's the best player in the country. Not the best player of all time, Greeny, but I think he's definitely going to be the best player in the country. He'll be on the best team.
Will they win these games so easily that it will actually hurt him, that he won't be playing deep into games, because their schedule should be a very easy ride for them?
Not only that, he's got Travis Etienne who at running back, who may be the top running back in the country, so that could steal a little bit of the spotlight. But he essentially will have 2 interesting games all year, and so that is not a great national stage.
I agree with you. And then that brings up another question, which is that Clemson and Alabama feel like such a prohibitive team. They are the dynasties of the modern moment. So give me the best team in the country that isn't Clemson or Alabama.
Well, that is Georgia. I think Georgia's talent level is very similar to Alabama. You can quibble here and there, but they have the best offensive line in the country. They have a very underrated quarterback in Jake Fromm. They have a great running back. They have a good defense, maybe not a great one, but Georgia has a real shot at the championship.
And then next, I want this from college football, because Urban Meyer, who now works at Fox Sports, had the following to say about Clemson quarterback Trevor Lawrence, whom you just projected would win the Heisman Trophy. He said, Trevor Lawrence, they have the best quarterback in college football ever. And that certainly got a lot of attention for a guy like Urban Meyer, who has seen some great quarterbacks, has coached some great quarterbacks himself, to suggest that this kid is the best quarterback in college football ever. Paul Feinbaum, do you think he is?
I think it's a ridiculous statement. Of course, the moment somebody gets into the media, they start hyperbolizing, Greeny, and certainly Urban Meyer is guilty of that. How can he forget his own quarterback? Tim Tebow is like his son. I think Tim Tebow is the best college quarterback I've ever seen. College quarterback. How Urban missed that during 4 years and 2 national championships in Gainesville? I have no idea.
Here's what I'd like to present, because there's 2 different ways to looking at college quarterbacks, okay? There is what they actually accomplished. Tim Tebow might be the greatest / most accomplished college quarterback of all time. Not the greatest college football player, the way it sort of projects to the next level. Much in the way that Christian Laettner might be the greatest college basketball player that ever played because of what he accomplished, or up there with guys. He's literally in a room with like Lou Alcindor and people like that. But you don't think of him that way because he didn't project to the next level. Is it possible Trevor Lawrence projects to the next level better than any college quarterback of all
unquestionably.
time?
Let's not forget Peyton Manning didn't win the Heisman Trophy, and he had a pretty good college career. So, yeah, people jump on that. But Tebow had all the intangibles. He willed his team to victory. Trevor Lawrence didn't have to do that last year.
I understand that. John Elway didn't win the Heisman. Andrew Luck didn't win the Heisman. But you ask Mel Kiper, and he tells you they were the best prospects of all time. Is this kid, Bobby Carpenter, Trevor Lawrence, going to surpass them and be the best college quarterback prospect of all time?
I think he can. He has the best tools right now, but we're going to have to see how he develops. And one of the issues, like Paul brought up, he's not going to be challenged. And part of it is you want to see those late game heroics, how they play when the chips are down, because that's how quarterbacks are judged. The 2-minute drill, big games, end of game situations. That's what we remember about Brady. That's what we remember about Montana.
What do you think?
I think it's going to be tough because of the talent. See, when you talk about Andrew Luck and John Elway, they played at Stanford. They didn't have the talent that some of these other quarterbacks we're talking about. I mean, Clemson. I mean, you're talking about as loaded a college roster as there is in college football. So I don't know if we'll be able to get to that level.
Yeah, and again, he had 3 competitive games last. Well, not even competitive, but Notre Dame, Alabama, and Texas A&M in the middle of the season. You know, beating up Wake, Forest, and Duke. That is not preparing you.
Right.
And I think that was the rap on 2 as well. So for Urban to make that statement, he's missing the season. Now, ultimately, he could grow into that. But this year, as we've all said, nobody really is on the schedule that will challenge Trevor Lawrence. Let's see him against great defenses. And the Alabama defense last year, I'm not making excuses for them, but defensively, from a coaching standpoint, they were dysfunctional toward the end of the year. And I'm not saying that's an aberration. He had a great game, but still, it's
Deshaun
too early.
Watson, who was the predecessor in Clemson, went up against Alabama in the championship game back-to-back years. Brilliant in both games, one in a close loss, one in a close win. We got to see him, to your point, in the big moment against the legendary program. We haven't seen that yet. That win, even in the championship game, was a lot easier than anybody expected. We have much more of this to come as we go on Get Up this morning. As we continue, replacing a top quarterback is not easy. Replacing him 2 weeks before the season starts, even harder. We'll show you why Jacoby Brissett just might be up to the task. Next.